Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of TCG Talk, back today with another video and another deck tech for you all today. Going into the Everfest meta, for me, it's more of trying to figure out, what heroes are positioned well while also trying to balance what heroes I want to play, right? For me right now, I'm pretty much on like Lexi, Ice Lexi, which we're going to go over today, Katsu, and Viserai. So today I want to go over the Ice Lexi deck I have. It's inspired a lot from Yuki, the Canadian Nationals winner. I wish they would have streamed that event more because I've been watching some interviews with her and some ways that she's looking at the deck, and it really inspired me to come back to play Ice Lexi. The deck that I'm running is pretty similar to hers. There's a couple card difference. I'd say like a 6 to 9 card difference. I'm just running a couple things that she's not running, and she's running a couple things I'm not running. So if you ever want to look at what she had too, you can go on the Fab website and see her under the Canadian Nationals like deck list, or you can go on YouTube if you just type in Canadian Nationals winner Ice Lexi. A couple of her videos will pop up where she's talking to a couple of interviews. Really amazing player, really good mind for the game. So definitely check her out and see what she does in the future. But for my version of the deck, it's Ice Lexi build. Key takeaway for this build is you are trying to disrupt your opponent, both through discard effects, through frostbites, basically making it to where they either can't, or it's hard for them to play on their turn because they have so much tax for that first card, or even all cards on their turn, or you make them discard cards out of their hand during your turn to where they don't have much of a turn when it comes to their one. It has good tempo. I think it's obviously really good against the aggro matchups. She built it obviously probably to go against Briar, but it's still good against Briar. It's good against Katsu. It's good against any like aggro based, and it's even good against mid range. Its biggest counters right now, just for anyone that's thinking about playing this, is Oldheim is really hard. You have to basically play perfect and still get a little lucky and sideboard perfectly and stuff like that. And I would say probably the next best one is maybe the hardest one is the mirror. Could be a little difficult, excuse me, for that. But other than that, I mean, maybe Control Dash might be a little difficult just because all the defense reactions, but for the most part, it's really a good matchup in most cases. So going into the deck, for the normal equipment suite, you ideally want to run Voltaire. I would put Shiver in the sideboard. I'm going to start experimenting with Shiver more with the Oldheim and Dash matchups, because giving your attacks dominate every single time may be very useful because they can't prohibit those on-hit effects. But overall, Voltaire is the most common one, and I still probably would run Voltaire in those matchups. Shiver's just a good option to maybe try and look at. For the headpiece, New Horizon, pretty simple there. Anyone who's thinking about playing this deck knows that. If you don't have New Horizon, because I know it's a very expensive piece, it's really hard to replace it, to be honest. There's a couple of Ranger equipments and stuff like that, but in order to make this deck work effectively, you need New Horizon. So if you're going to play this deck at a serious level, save up the money, maybe sell some other cards you have, try to get New Horizon, because there's not really a replacement for it. For the chest piece, Findel Spring Tunic's the best option. If you don't have that, though, Deep Blue's really good. She talked about in one of her interviews, and something I've seen too, is if you draw the 4 reds, basically, which is equivalent to like 4 non-attack actions, and Rude Blade, it just sucks. Deep Blue is really good in order to get those resources that you need. You basically sink one of your red cards, and then you get a blue, or you get 3 resources. So it's really good for that. It's actually just a really good card in general if you want to do a swing turn. Highly recommend it. It's a very simple card too. If you bought any Tails packs, you probably have this card. For leg piece, some people use Snapdragon Killers. I'm gonna use Perch Grapplers. You have a lot of blues in this deck. We're running 20 to 23 blues, so paying 2 resources to give all your attacks go again is no issue at all. And that way you can use the +1 effect on Voltaire and give all your attacks even a higher ceiling, and blocks for 2. It's just a really good card. Shock Charmers is really what makes this deck go from good to great. You obviously can play Bullseye Bracers if you don't have Shock Charmers. I'm not saying you can't play this deck without Shock Charmers, but Shock Charmers makes this deck slightly or pretty oppressive to insanely oppressive. If you play a Red Chilling Ice Vein, which whenever attack deals damage to the hero this turn, they discard a card unless they pay 1. If you Shock Charmer it, now they're having to do that action twice, and it just makes good attacks and a great attack. So that's the equipments that I'm running. You might could put a Null Rune Robe in there, because that's probably the least important out of all your pieces in order to run Null Rune if you're going against a Viserai or against a Kano or something like that. Shock Charmers does have Spell Void too, but overall the ice effect is going to help prohibit their turns anyway, so it's really good for that. Getting into the deck, Similar to her, I run as low as 30 arrows and as high as 34. I guess the magic number is in between 30 and 33. But you need at least 30. Do not go below 30 arrows. If you do, you're not going to be consistent enough. So for arrows, I'm running a full set of Blizzard Bolts, full set of Chilling Ice Veins. Both of their on-hit effects are just insane when you fuse them. One creates a Frostbite token, and Blizzard Bolt and Chilling Ice Vein says either they discard a card or pay one. It's pretty insane. Even at blue, this is a little bit threatening. If you give it +1 with Voltaire or even Go Again, they don't want to block a 3, but they also don't want to discard a card. So basically, you're forcing them to block or get rid of a card, even with a blue Chilling Ice Vein. It's pretty awesome. Bolt and Shot's really good. If you give it +1 with Voltaire, it gets automatic Go Again, right? Because if its base attack is higher than its base, so it's a 1. It's basically a 0 for 5 with Go Again. When it comes to Voltaire, it's really good. And then if it hits, you can reload automatically if you want to. Maybe if you play this on your second attack, and you've used Perch Grapplers or something, and you've already used Voltaire twice, you could use this and get 3 attacks out of it. There are a couple lines where you can get 3 arrows. This is where I differ from her. She runs Remorseless in hers, which is still a great card. Definitely can try it. I run Hamstring Shot because, again, I'm trying to go for that disruption. I'm trying to make it harder for them on their turns. So this basically is a Frostbite token if it hits. It costs their first attack 1 additional to play. So it's basically like a Frostbite on their first attack, and it's a 1 for 5. So, it's 1 for 5 with Go Again. If you can pump it with a Lightning Press or something like that, it's even better. And my last set of arrows is Frostlock. This is in my core, by the way. I think I have a 56 card core. It's either 56 or 53. I think it's 56. And then I have Frostlock, which is really good. 1 for 4. Doesn't allow them to play call. It has Go Again with Voltaire if it's fused. So if it's fused, it's a 1 for 4 with Go Again, and they can't play or pitch cards with 0 on their next turn. So that's my arrows. So I have 3, 6, 9, 18, 21, 24, 27 arrows in my core, and then I add in about 6 probably. For cards that are not arrows, I will still run 2 Frostfangs similar to her. It's a great card. It's basically a Chilling Ice Vein, right? If it hits, they discard a card unless they pay 2. So it's basically a Chilling Ice Vein. It's a 2 for 5. You can pump it with a Weave Ice or an Ice Quake, so it can be a 2 for 8, right? With that on hit effect, and it's pretty insane. So that's my last set of attacks. I run 6 Ice Quakes at blue and red. They're really good. You could even think about running it at yellow, but blue and red's pretty good. It gives the good thing about Ice Quake is it's similar to and Chilling Ice Vein is the same way. You gotta make sure you read these cards. A lot of the effects on these cards aren't like the next attack. It's until the end of the turn. So Ice Quake reads your next attack gains +1, or at red it's +3. But for the rest of the turn, if any attack hits, it creates a Frostbite token. So it works for both your attacks with Voltaire. Same thing with Chilling Ice Vein. If you play Chilling Ice Vein first, it says whenever an attack deals damage to a hero this turn, they discard a card unless they pay 1. So Chilling Ice Vein is going to affect its own card and the next one. So if you play a Chilling Ice Vein with an Ice Quake, now every attack that hits that turn creates a Frostbite and makes them discard a card, pay 1. So you can see where the disruption starts to come really heavily into play. I run 6 Ice Quakes. I run 3 Lightning Press. This is really good. If you flip this in Arsenal and give your next attack Go Again, it's pretty insane because now they have to decide if they want to overblock, underblock, just take the damage, whatever. It puts your opponent in a really bad spot. I run the Pulse of Volthaven, obviously. It's a great card. It procs both of Lexi's abilities. If you flip it, it gives your next attack +4. It doesn't block, but you don't really care. It only works for lightning, ice, or elemental attacks, so just be careful on that. Weave Ice, I run the red in my core, and I have the yellow in the sideboard. It's really good. If you fuse it, it gives your attack Dominate, the next attack Dominate if that attack is fused, and it gives it a buff. Just a great card all overall. 3 of a Kind is pretty self-explanatory. Most people understand why that card's good. And if you're running 30 or 33 arrows, you're almost guaranteed not to whiff. Obviously, you can. We've seen it happen, right? But it's not as hard. Blue Winter's Bite I run, and Channel Lake Frigid, both really good cards. Channel Lake Frigid's really good, especially against the high aggro decks. Costs a little bit to play, but it's good to play at the end of a turn if you can. It is a blue, so you can also pitch it, and it blocks for 3 if you know it's not going to last the 2 turns. The other card that I run that she is different, I like running this is Poison the Tips. Until the end of your turn, arrows you control gain. If it hits a hero, they discard a card. So basically, it's a Chilling Ice Vein, right? So if you play this with a Chilling Ice Vein, basically your Chilling Ice Vein is hitting 1 for 5 with Go Again. And if it hits, they basically almost have to discard 2 cards. Whether through pitch or discard, whatever it is, they have to get rid of 2 cards out of their hand if you play Poison the Tips with a Chilling Ice Vein. I think if you're trying to run this, I think this is a great card. If you're trying to run this disruption, discard, tax effect, this is the perfect card for it. So I definitely would run this. It's only for arrows, so just be aware of that. But it's so good. So good. So that's my core. Like I said, 3, 6, 9, 11, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, 32. I'm just making sure I get this right. 30, 35, 38, 41, 44, 47, 50, 53 card core. So 7 cards side in. You can run a little bit more than 60 with a Lexi deck. I don't like going above 64, 65, but you can. I have 1 Amulet of Ice. I don't want 2 of these in my deck because if I have these 2 and my Pulse of Volthaven, now all of a sudden I have 3 cards that don't block. And that I know with this deck, you're typically never going to block because you're trying to keep tempo with your disruption, but I just don't want more than 1 in my hand. Blizzard is another one. It's instant. You run this against Briar, against Katsu, even against Dash. Any deck that wants to go wide, that's what you're going to use this Blizzard on. It basically inhibits their Go Again or it ends their turn because they're going to have to pay 2, which they don't want to do with most of those high aggro decks. Flake Out's really good, although Flake Out, I'm thinking about subbing out for maybe Remorseless because it's kind of redundant. Weave Ice gives my attacks dominate anyway, and I'm not looking for high dominated attacks. And its fuse effect is dominate. Its fuse effect has nothing to do with disruption or with anything like that. So I don't know. I'm still on the fence about this card, but it's not bad. Definitely something you can run. Icequake at yellow, if I really am running against Oldheim maybe, or against another like kind of control matchup, I'll run this to try to get over top their attacks while also giving them a Frostbite. I run Blue Polar Blast in the side, obviously siding in. It's really good as a blue. Sleep Dart's really good against the Briar matchup. It's also really good against the Viscerai matchup. Viscerai matchup should be an activated ability. So it's definitely a Briar. I have to check on Viscerai, but I know it's good against the Briar matchup, obviously, and against Katsu, because he can't proc his Katsu. Weave Ice is really good again. Put this in if you're going against an Oldheim or anybody that you need to get over the top a lot of damage on. Maybe they run a lot of defense reactions against you. And if it fuses your next attack, if your next attack is fused against Dominate, so it's really good for that. And then finally, I'm going to have 2 Endless Arrows similar to her. So a lot of this is inspired by her, but again, I run Poison Tip. She doesn't run that. And then I run Hamstring Shot. She doesn't run those. So it's a little bit different. But overall, you're wanting around 30 to 33 arrows. And then you want anywhere the lowest blue count I would go is 18. Ideally, you probably want 20 to 22. But you can go as low as 18. You're just risking a little bit, in my opinion. You just want to make sure you always have a blue no matter what, because it's very taxing deck to play. You're minimum using 2 resources per turn, sometimes more. Because like these Icequakes cost 1 resource, right, to play. And you have a couple of these Channeling Frigid cost 2 resources to play, right? So if you play Channeling Frigid with an arrow, that's 3. That's a blue. So 2 of your cards are going to cost a blue, and you're only going to have 1 card left in hand, maybe 2 if you had an Arsenal Briar 2. But your Polar Blast and your Icequakes all cost 1, so you want to make sure you have the necessary resources for those. But this is a really good deck. I think it's really well positioned in the meta right now. I think you can do really good with it. Oldheim's obviously a tough matchup. I would think about subbing in the Weave Ices, the Icequakes, trying to get over the top. Maybe even experiment with Shiver to try to give consistent dominate, so you always get that on-hit effect and just chip it Oldheim, chip it Oldheim, chip it Oldheim. Really good for that. Some people have talked about Heart of Ice. I don't think it's worth the squeeze personally. I'd much rather have a Deep Blue or a Fendel Spring Tunic even than a Heart of Ice. So do with that how you want. But that's just my thoughts on it. But yeah, let me know what you think of the deck. I'm really excited to play it in the future. Like I said, I'm kind of bouncing between this, Katsu, and Viscerai. I think this is in the lead for my favorite deck right now going into the Everfest meta, other than Oldheim, which I don't build. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts on the deck, what your thoughts on Ice Lexi are as a whole. What decks are you looking at going into Everfest? Super happy and excited about the upcoming set. I think it's going to really keep the game pushing forward, especially with the meta now being kind of balanced out with all the bans. But yeah, let me know what y'all think. I hope y'all have a great rest of your week. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe. If not me, go to another Flesh and Blood creator, leave a like, comment, subscribe on their stuff. And yeah, I'll see you all next time on TCG Talk. Thank y'all so much.